All right, y'all, here we go. This is a big deal here. The Atlantic, which is nobody's like radical publication, it's very like mainstream and liberal publication. They released a bombshell article here where they detail the Saudi government being complicit in 9/11. So here, let's go through a bunch of it. New 9/11 evidence points to deep Saudi complicity. 2 decades of U.S. policy appear to be rooted in a mistaken understanding of what happened that day. It's from Daniel Benjamin and Stephen Simon. Here's what they say. Listen to this. For more than 2 decades, through 2 wars and domestic upheaval, the idea that al-Qaeda acted alone on 9/11 has been the basis of U.S. policy. A Blue Ribbon Commission concluded that Osama bin Laden had pioneered a new kind of terrorist group combining superior technological know-how, extensive resources, and a worldwide network so well coordinated that it could carry out operations of unprecedented magnitude. This vanguard of jihad, it seemed, was the first non-state actor that rivaled nation-states in the damage it could wreak. The assessment now appears wrong. And if our understanding of what transpired on 9/11 turns out to have been flawed, then the costly policies the United States has pursued for the past quarter century have been rooted in a false premise. The global war on terror was based on a mistake. A new filing in a lawsuit brought by the families of 9/11 victims against the government of Saudi Arabia alleges that al-Qaeda had significant, indeed decisive, state support for its attacks. Officials of the Saudi government, the plaintiffs' attorneys, contend, formed and operated a network inside the United States that provided crucial assistance to the first cohort of 9/11 hijackers to enter the country. The 71-page document released in redacted form earlier this month summarizes what the plaintiffs say they've learned through the evidence obtained in discovery and recently declassified materials. They allege that Saudi officials, most notably Fahad al-Thumairi, an imam at a Los Angeles mosque and an accredited diplomat at Saudi Arabia's consulate in that city, and Omar al-Bayoumi, who masqueraded as a graduate student but was identified by the FBI as an intelligence operative, were not rogue operators, but rather the front end of a conspiracy that included the Saudi embassy in Washington and senior government officials in Riyadh. The plaintiffs argue that Thumairi and Bayoumi organized safe reception, transportation, and housing for hijackers Khalid al-Midhar and Nawaf al-Hamzi, beginning upon their arrival in California on January 15, 2000. Both Thumairi and Bayoumi have denied aiding the pilot. Bayoumi, along with Saudi Arabia, has denied that he had any involvement with its intelligence operations. The filing further argues that Thumairi and Bayoumi introduced the pair to local sympathizers in Los Angeles and San Diego, who catered to their day-to-day needs, including help with immigration matters, digital and phone communications, and receiving funds from al-Qaeda by wire transfer. Saudi officials also helped the 2 al-Qaeda operatives, both Saudi nationals with little education or command of English, whose experience abroad consisted mostly of training and fighting for jihadist causes, to procure a car as well as a driver's license. This support network was crucial. Now, by the way, this goes on here and they get into more of the evidence, but basically what they're claiming here is the people who did 9/11 had direct ties to the Saudi government, and there were even people working at like the Saudi embassy who were helping to facilitate everyday life for these people who ended up being the hijackers, helping them wire transfer money from al-Qaeda. Bruh. Look, we knew Saudi Arabia was involved, but my understanding previously is that they were only involved as it pertains to spreading radical Islamic ideology, like Salafist Sunni ideology, spreading these radical mosques all over the place, and then funding some of the people who ended up branching off to then do it. According to this, no, they like helped do it. The Saudi government helped do it. God damn, bro. There were no consequences. There was no accountability. Now, by the way, they go on to point out something that I think is kind of interesting, which is that MBS is not an extension of those people. He's actually, call it what it is, he's like a more secular dictator, right? That this Salafist faction that ran the government in Saudi Arabia at the time has actually largely fallen off, and now you have a more of a secular dictatorship style with MBS. But according to everything that they go through here, basically Saudi Arabia did 9/11, right? Isn't it so crazy how even at this super late date, there's still like new things that come out? By the way, the U.S. government likes to blame Iran as if Iran had something to do with it. They had literally absolutely nothing to do with it. And there's all sorts of conspiracies out there. You guys have heard, the 9/11 truthers think the U.S. government was directly involved with it. You got people who say Israel was directly involved with it. According to this evidence, it's the Saudi government that was directly involved in it. And again, no justice. No arrests. In fact, as I'm sure you all know, the Bush administration helped fly members of the bin Laden family out of the U.S. at the time. So here we are, years and years and years later, and there's still 9/11 questions that are relevant and unanswered. Saudi Arabia may be directly involved in it. Anyway, let's go send them billions more dollars and more weapons. Right? Like with Israel. Israel, AIPAC literally buys all of our politicians and controls them. And we're watching them do a genocide with our money and weapons. Yeah, let's go send them more money and weapons too, right? These are abusive, toxic-ass relationships that we have with Saudi Arabia, that we have with Israel. The idea that we would continue with the status quo is inconceivable. But nonetheless, that's exactly what's going to happen. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.